Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Zach Celadonia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and joining me here for a little more Monday morning quarterbacking, as always, my comrade, my pal, my buddy, my cohort. Did I say partner in crime? I usually save that for Brian. I don't know though. You're looking a little suspicious today. One, Zach Flash Celadonia. Zach, all things considered, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. I'm good. I think I'm doing better than a lot of fans because whereas I'm bummed deep down that the Steelers are losing games, the important thing is we have a quarterback. We have a quarterback. We have a quarterback. That is such a big deal. I cannot stress it enough. So we lost and we're losing games at a consistent rate now, it's fair to say. But one of the hardest things to do in football is find a franchise quarterback. And I think the Steelers have done that despite the ass kicking yesterday. So I'm doing all right.
Yeah, and believe it or not, there's some folks out there. I had an account just find me somewhere on Twitter. It was like some generic name like Jason with a bunch of freaking numbers at the end of it. One follower tweets something like once every month and sent me like Kenny Pickett had like 6.3 yards per attempt yesterday because I had the thing with Mitch from the previous 4 weeks where, you know, Mitch was struggling to do even that. And it's like Kenny threw 52 times. 327 yards. People are like, well, how do you get so excited about this? Well, number one, there hasn't been any quarterback other than Mason. Take Ben Roethlisberger out of this equation. So for the 18, now 19 seasons, other than Mason Rudolph against the Cleveland Browns, I believe, or was it against the Lions? Maybe it was even against the Lions. No one's thrown for three. It was against the Browns. No one's thrown for 300 yards as a Steelers quarterback with that uniform on. Not Byron Leftwich, not Charlie Batch, not Landry Jones. I mean, pretty obvious for him. But I mean, not Michael Vick. No one else.
Bruce Gronkowski.
No, Bruce had like 3 attempts in the Steelers uniform, I think, and that was in the playoff game against the Ravens, which was just kind of like, you know, when people look back, and I don't want to jump off all the good Kenny stuff yet, but we're going to talk about the Fire Mike Tomlin stuff. Let's table this for a second, because I come back to this game where Le'Veon Bell had his knee taken out from his knee, and you had to suit up Ben Tate, and then whatever that other, I always forget that Jags name that comes back around and says all the bad stuff about Ben, but he was an undrafted running back. And Josh Harris. Yeah, Josh. And you were hoping he would have done something off the practice squad, and both those dudes were like, they accounted for not picking up blocks and pass protection and fumbles, and just it was just a gigantic freaking mess. And they lose at home in 2014, where, you know, they had some good teams. Maybe they should do a little bit more, but man, it really is football. And it's like, I get sick of always having to remind people like, hey, what's Bill Belichick done in the last 3 years? Oh, you know, are the natives going to get restless in New England with the Patriots not winning playoff games, or John Harbaugh with an MVP quarterback and he has like one victory, one playoff win with Lamar Jackson. He only has 2. The aforementioned, that's why I'm bringing him up, 2014, since they won a Super Bowl in 2012. It's been a decade now, and he has 2 playoff wins with, quote, all this talent. It's hard to win in the NFL. You look at Sean Payton, you look at, you know, Tony Dungy had 1 Super Bowl ring, and John Madden had 1 Super Bowl ring running into, you know, Chuck Noll and stuff like that. So I try and not get on the Fire Tomlin thing. Everybody thinks his seat's like really cushy and he's never going to be in a hot seat. It's like, you just don't realize just how bad the rest of the NFL has it. For the first time in like 6-7 years, both New York teams are finally over 500, which is something that should be pointed out. I know they beat the Steelers, the Jets did, but just take a look. The Jets are 3-2 now, okay? Maybe when you look in hindsight, and I had this gut feeling, and I didn't want to jump the shark and say it last week, but I'm like, you know, we're going to look back on some of these losses and say, hey, these were all playoff teams early on. These were all good teams that they were facing, and while the Steelers were trying to sort things out, maybe, you know, in hindsight, this won't look as bad as it did. But that's kind of where we're at with the Kenny thing, because he's about the only guy I think that didn't look bad yesterday. I got a couple of
him and Pickens.
Oh yeah,
right there.
Studley.
I said
Um,
if they can try, they might as well trot Kenny and Pickens out there together, do a two-man package. No linemen, no nothing. Just put them out there, 1 and 2, see what happens. It can't be much worse than what we've seen. And Kenny broke a record. Romo was quick to mention it.
yeah.
Romo was as I felt like I was speaking vicariously through Tony Romo numerous times yesterday. And I know people have kind of like the pendulum has swung back on the Romo love since he's come onto the scene as a broadcaster. He gets a lot more hate now. I genuinely enjoy Tony Romo. It's kind of like entertaining seeing his voice go up and down and I don't know, Jim, and like, how excited he gets, and he still does the prediction thing every once in a while. But he was gushing over Kenny Pickett yesterday and going out of his way to kind of like ease the Steeler fans as this like calming father figure, like, hey, it's okay, I mean, Kenny Pickett does look good. It's hard to say. I mean, it's obvious almost that he looks good. It's just you need more than that right now. And what I was saying was he mentioned that Kenny Pickett broke a record. He was the first Steelers rookie quarterback in their first debut as a starter to eclipse 300 yards. He had 321 yards when Romo mentioned this. He finished with 327. I looked before the game, but when he hit 321 is when Romo brought it up, saying it was the most yards a Steelers rookie quarterback had ever thrown for in his debut. 50 throws aside, that's the number one pass defense. And I know they were missing guys, but we were missing guys too. Ended up missing a lot of guys by the end of the game.
Yeah, I'm going to get started on that too.
Yeah, I was thoroughly impressed with Kenny Pickett's performance, and that's why I led the show with that.
No, you're right on, and we've got more. Hey, it's like I said, it's like an infomercial sometimes, but wait, there's more. The 34 completions from Kenny Pickett are the most by a rookie quarterback in their first career start since the 1970 NFL AFL merger. This is Michael Birch. His little Birchy bits, follow him. He's part of the Steelers PR department at Steelers PR Mike. He's always got some of these great things and a few more that Michael Birch put out there. Let's see, 327 passing yards is the 8th most by a rookie quarterback in her first career starts since that merger. The record's 422 by Cam Newton back in 2011, which is kind of crazy to think about too. They just let him throw it all over the place. Let's see, and I think there's still one more. 206 yards passing in the second half, for the most by a rookie quarterback in a half in franchise history. The 5th quarterback in franchise history to throw for at least 200 yards in a single half. So already you've got that. You've got some things. Here's where I'm at. And you've got the folks. The first thing last night, I finally settled in. I did not get to watch House of the Dragon like I tweeted out. Everybody got me off kilter. I was too tired and exhausted from the Twitter banter.
Oh, that's okay. Me too, dude. No spoilers tonight.
No, yeah. Tonight. Yeah, there's no spoilers because I didn't get to see it. So, but I've been trying to keep up. There's very little you can keep up with during football season. I'm trying to watch some of the other games and stuff. I was glued in on that the Ravens and the Bengals, because I'm just kind of like, I see a lot of the same parallels where, Joe Burrow, I've said it many times, Joe Burrow, I see a lot of the same tendencies with Kenny Pickett, maybe with the offensive line, et cetera, and how that team came around and all of a sudden was competing for a Super Bowl. And I think the Steelers got a lot of the same things in place, but I wake up to I'll just say I wake up to, it was through yesterday and before I went to bed, but it's Fire Mac Canada. It's the pitchforks and the torches. And look, I'm not going to say I'm like a card carrying Mac Canada Club member or something like that. But at the same time, I don't see how you come out of this game. I understand they only scored 3 points. It was 38-3, but is anyone looking at the 38 and asking themselves, maybe Matt Canada isn't the problem here? I mean, come on. Like, at least not the chief problem. We're going to go through some of the playbook, too, because I understand where people are like, run, pass. Why are they running the ball? Running isn't effective. Well, I'm sorry. Having your rookie quarterback in his first start throw 52 passes probably isn't effective either. It's a credit to Kenny Pickett. He was able to complete 65.4% of those. He completed a higher percentage of his passes than even Josh Allen by throwing 21 more attempts. The thing is, you don't have, what was it, Gabe Davis or whoever just streaking down the middle of the field, 98-yard touchdown, 60-some yard touchdown strikes, just absolutely torching your D. By the way, Josh Allen, career high, 424 yards passing in this game, 4 touchdowns, 134.1 quarterback rating. The Buffalo Bills did not punt and they haven't been punting against anyone, by the way, but they did not punt until Case Keenum comes into this game. And the Steelers, it's their worst defeat since 1989. I believe that was a week 1 loss to the Cleveland Browns where they got shellacked way back about a season or two before Chuck Noll left town. And it's one of the worst losses in franchise history. It might still be, even this one.
I was thinking the Bengals whooped us pretty bad last year at home, though. What was that?
Yeah, they did. 40. Well, that was on the road too. 41.
No. When I'm talking about when Jamar Chase just ran right by James Pierre. The Bengals were in all white. They were in all white the first time, and I'm pretty sure they hung high 30s on us, and we only had close to single digits. So I know they were making that a thing, and it was an ugly loss, but it's not unfamiliar territory.
That was the one in Cincinnati where I sat there with our former contributor Ryan, and we're just kind of just don't look at us. The first game was 24-10. The one that was in Cincinnati, the second one was week 12. That was 41-10. So yeah, it was pretty bad. It was pretty much over at half too. If I look up that box score, yeah, very much similarities. You knew Cincinnati was rolling by this point, and the Steelers were rolling the wrong way. 21 points in the second quarter for the Bengals, who already laid 10 on the Steelers in the first quarter. It was already 31-3 at halftime. But it's where do you start here? And I guess let's stick with offense for a second, because I already mentioned let the Matt Canada thing out of the bag. And I try to figure out in some of the situations, yes, there is some coaching, there's some tough love that needs to be had. I'm not sure how you fix the run game. You got to have some sort of run game. We've been talking about this. My keys to this were you needed a little bit of the wide receivers involved, maybe with some of these jet sweeps, just to keep the Bills maybe honest, maybe stretch the field a little bit, maybe get Najee involved in the pass game, which they started to, and then it kind of went away from. And I know some of these are small passes and things, but it helps maybe open up, you get the middle of the field. And then I was looking for time of possession, and I made a joke. I was like, well, time of possession is not going to be a problem when the Bills are scoring in 1 to 2 plays. So, I mean, I actually don't know where that ended up, by the way. I'm going to take a look at that real quick, too. Steelers actually, this is kind of sick. You don't even want to know this. If you didn't look, over 36 minutes, 36:08. The Buffalo's 23:52. They had over 12 minutes longer time of possession. I know some of that's that last drive. They tried to squeak out a little bit and this and that, but there's other things, and I used to defend Todd Haley tooth and nail on this. When you have guys that are not catching the football, like Sammy Coates, for example, back in the day, Deontay Johnson, if he gets his toe in an inch closer or comes down with an extra ball, one that was almost picked, like a third down, or maybe the referees for some reason actually throw a flag on Kenny Pickett sliding, and that doesn't become a third down. Or you don't have Dan Moore shoot yourself in the foot with false start. Notice I'm not saying Kenny Pickett in any of these things. And I'm not necessarily saying Matt Canada. I know people are going to say you got to have these teams disciplined. You got to do this and that. But when it comes down to it, I think the Steelers come into this game. They look at the Buffalo Bills and they look where they've been. And I think they were already mentally beat before they even got on the field. And then when all of these other things end up transpiring, it just rolls downhill. You know what? Hits the fan. We've seen it before. And every phase of football was just absolute, pure, hot garbage for the most part, other than watching Kenny complete a high percent of his passes. And no, they weren't all short, 6.3 yard per average, because you know what? I got that too. Hold on, Zach. Take your notes. But let me pull it up real quick. So there's a huge difference between, this was Mitch Trubisky week 3. What was there, 4 passes in the middle of the field there? Damn near everything is all over by the numbers. And then if we take this and I flip it over, and I could do something a little bit better where we kind of ease this in. This is going to be Kenny Pickett's chart right here. Yeah. And notice how many more passes from yesterday are all in the middle of the field and how many of them are actually completed. For those who can't see, it's far more than the 3 or 4, and there's a lot more that are going beyond the 10 yards downfield. In fact, probably about 20 passes at least are going to 10-yard marker. Mitch had maybe a few too, but they're all going sidelines in this case as well. So it's not that these opportunities don't exist there. They're just not executing, and it's not all on the quarterback. And I do believe that this is the quarterback that gives them the best opportunity to compete and win games. I thought the Steelers would be a little closer in 14. I thought they could have at least gotten maybe 20 points just based on the Bills secondary not being in shambles and this, that, and the other thing. And boy, I mean, I was wrong. And what else can you say about that? But I wasn't wrong about Kenny. I know he had the one pick. That was about the only bad throw he had the entire day. And you got that stuff's going to happen. That stuff even happens with Ben Roethlisberger. It happens with Aaron Rodgers. I watched some of these games. You see everything that happens. Every single little minutia is going to be questioned. Mike Tomlin, Matt Canada, but it's not just totally Matt Canada. Play calling can be a deal, and it's never always going to be perfect, but play execution is pretty high on that list too, because I think if Deontay comes down with that, if you're not kicking a field goal starting the game and you're tying it, if you don't have special team snafus, like I guess Steve Sims had something happen to his eyeball, and you have James Pierre for some reason covering a kick return or whatever, it's just a comedy of errors. What else can you say? And I haven't even gotten to the defense yet.
Yeah, just save your breath.
I know. I'm sorry, man. It was just I had to sandwich a little bit of that in there because I had that all queued up with Kenny versus Mitch. And you know what? I'll show it just one more time just to have it up on here. So this is Mitch's graphic from Next Gen Stats. You can go over to the NFL website to pick this up. And then as we fade in, hold on, not fade into me and you. I got to pull up the other graphic. And
clip art on the slideshows.
Yeah. So it's just like you could see where it's just like a lot different. I mean, just the volume of passes too, but most of these are at least going 5 yards past. There's some short ones that are there. Some of that's going to be built into these games. There's no way you're going to get around it. And I know you've got a great point to make about Matt Canada. And even if they were to fire him, what do you think is going to really change here?
Oh, yeah, I appreciate that for sure. I mean, I think a majority of my points are good, but I'll try to remember the exact one you're talking about. Kenny's the whole reason I didn't turn the game off in the fourth quarter. And I know that could come as a surprise to some people when you exude the black and gold and you live and die by it. But I mean, I turned off a couple games these past few seasons where we were getting blown out by the fourth quarter because it was just so frustrating to watch, and there really wasn't any reason to continue to watch any further. But with Kenny Pickett, my eyes were still glued to the screen because I wanted to see what more he could do and how well he could play given the circumstance, playing from behind. And I noticed that I thought that Kenny, like throughout the duration of getting blown out, was playing and attacking like he had purpose of trying to come back. He was looking down the field. He was extending plays. He was trying to make plays. And I think that is what you want to see, of course, from your young quarterback. And my mom, she was over it because I was trying to console her after the game. I was texting her. I was like, Mom, at least Kenny Pickett looks good. And I explained some throws he had in the second half. And she was like, I didn't even watch the second half. I couldn't. It was too ugly. And I said, okay, I understand. But I kind of had to watch just to see how Kenny Pickett did. And with Matt Canada, I think that he is not a good coordinator by any means, but there is credit to what you're speaking there that Deontay Johnson really put the Steelers in a bad spot yesterday, among other things. There's other components to the offense as well, but Deontay's 2 drops, mainly the first one where Kenny Pickett was trying to extend the play, rolled to his right, and threw across his body, which normally is a very bad thing to do. They teach you not to do it in middle school before they get you sized for your helmet. They're like, never throw across your body if you're a quarterback. And he was able to do it in such a fashion that he found Deontay Johnson wide open. Jaylen Warren was also wide open, like farther away, but he found Deontay wide open in the middle of the field. Ball was right on his hands, and Deontay let it go through his hands and almost forced a turnover. And great. Wasn't an interception, but it still halted the drive, and it would have been an electric play for the offense to pull off. I believe we were only down 7 at that point, and if you run the play back, it's all over Twitter right now. If Deontay catches that, not only does he have Jaylen Warren, who I mentioned, like coming down the field to help block for him, there really weren't many Bills on the screen, and then Deontay was going that way that the ball was. So what I'm saying is his momentum would have carried him Who knows? Maybe not to a score, but he would have put the Steelers probably at least closer to achieving a field goal on that drive. And the win, too. Speaking of field goals, I don't think that helped at all because it isn't like Boswell to miss multiple field
Oh,
goals, especially close range ones. But I think there is fault that needs to be placed at Canada's feet for sure. For
oh,
sure. I'm
can
not
I
going to sit here
interject real
and,
quick? Guess who
yeah, of
had? Guess
course.
who
It's your
had?
show.
Well, I know, but I got to remember this. Guess who had the field goal prop 1.5 or more? Pittsburgh with the
You?
over. Yes,
Yeah,
of
the
course.
fix was in. I mean, I didn't hit a bet. I couldn't hit a bet yesterday if
Well, I
the
got
bet was
Kenny.
water
I
and I
got
fell
Kenny
out of a
over
boat.
198.5 passing yards. So I hit on that one, but man, I was very disappointed. I'm like Boswell. I'm like, if this offense stalls, Tomlin will trot him out there. Wasn't anticipating bad weather. So I'm sorry, you were saying about Canada though.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, dude, the wind was no one I think knew that was coming until the game started. So I only that's all I hit on bets too was Kenny's passing yards. That's really all I was able to hit on. But Canada, so I think that he's not a good coordinator. I think that there's multiple problems on the offense, and I don't think you can fire Canada right now. So I think you can say all of those things if you can say it with a level head and try to explain that they can't fire Canada right now because there's nobody on the street just waiting for a job that's a good offensive coordinator. I know that isn't a good excuse to some people, like, oh, you shouldn't just continue to accept mediocrity. The thing is, they can't bring in a guy off the street because you can't teach 20 plus guys a brand new offense in a week's time and prepare them for Tampa Bay or whoever's after Tampa Bay. So the idea of bringing in somebody else to replace Matt Canada right now isn't realistic. It can't be done. And the other option is to fire him and promote within house. And then the new offensive coordinator would probably be Sullivan, the quarterback coach. And he's not going to come in here with these futuristic, crazy ideas and change the offense. They're probably going to stick to Matt Canada's plan in a general sense, maybe sprinkle in a few things differently. But there's no like light at the end of the tunnel here for getting rid of Matt Canada mid-season. At the end of the season, we can talk, absolutely, because I'm not too blind to see that there's problems on offense, whether or not the skilled guys are making mistakes. I don't think 2, 3, even 4 mistakes by your skilled offensive players should totally derail the offense. And
I
I
agree.
don't understand why the offense went away from the first quarter script. Like, if people don't understand that term or never heard it, a lot of the time when you have a new quarterback, or whether it's because he's a rookie or a free agent, and he isn't familiar with everything about the offense, they create a script for him so he's comfortable. They talk to the quarterback in the offense and they're like, okay, let's think of 10 to 12, maybe 15 max plays that you're really comfortable with, that you know in and out, that we can stretch the field. We have you throwing at all 3 different levels, the whole 9 yards. It's about 10 to 15 plays pre-scripted, and they run through them. And usually, when a team does this, the script will work. It'll have you thinking this offense can hum. This offense is doing well. Like, we're converting first downs at a high rate. We're scoring points. And then the Achilles heel of these teams that do this, because I'm a fan of the script. I like the script. It was working in the first quarter. They go away from the script. They deviate from the script. Now, I know you can't just run the same plays back in chronological order like it's Madden, but why don't you like shuffle them up? Like, take play 10 and run it as play 3. Take play 15, run it as play 4. Like, just mix the script up, because something changed from the first quarter to the second where they just took their foot off the gas. And it wasn't even like we weren't humming down the highway at 100 miles an hour with this offense. We were going a steady 50, 60 miles an hour, cruising along. And then something in the second quarter happened and we went back to like North Park speed, 25 miles an hour. That's it. And I think you have to establish the run. Absolutely. That's a core football value. It's a principle of football. If you can't run the ball, you can't win in January. It's there's like it's a passing league, but running the ball is still important. But I think there was circumstance to be considered yesterday that you were in a one possession game with the best team in the NFL, and the best way you were finding success on offense to that point was letting Kenny cook and letting Kenny throw the football. So whereas I know and I think running the football is still important, after the second time, the second 3 and out where it was run, pass, I thought that was plenty. That was good. On the third try, maybe let's pass a little more. And they did the same thing, run, pass. And it's too conservative to play that way when you aren't that good of a football team on offense. I think they had a groove in the first quarter, and for whatever reason, they went away from it. I don't think it was a good idea to totally change courses in the second quarter, and that's what they seem they did. Sprinkling in the run is fine. They were doing that in the first quarter with the script, but something happened in that second quarter where I don't know who got scared, whether it was Tomlin or Canada, but they were like, let's go back to these first 3-4 games of the season we saw where it's just run, pass, screen, let's try to force it down the field now. And ultimately it felt like they were just like handcuffing Kenny. So I think Canada deserves flack, but I say that while also knowing there's no reasonable solution to changing his position right now, because we're kind of stuck with him. And especially now you're getting into these murky waters where Kenny is starting to like get his playbook down and learn his offense. So you might as well just ride with him the rest of the year. And then if it really doesn't get better, obviously reevaluate at the end of the year. But there's chances for it to get better, especially because it all comes back to, Kenny played really well yesterday. So they have the straw to mix the drink. They have the quarterback. It's just the other guys have to execute.
Man, no, you hit the points we were saying off air for sure, especially with it, just like you said, you're just getting Kenny in there and now you're going to pull the rug out from under him. And if you do, are you really changing the playbook that much? I mean, and the next guy comes in and let's say it's Sullivan, not of the Pens, which I heard someone else say on a different show too, by the way. But it's like, okay, he gets in there and now he calls a pass instead of a run and then that pass fails. It's like, there's multiple layers to this. I wanted to look at from the very beginning of this game what ends up happening. The Steelers win the coin toss and finally they defer, which I'm a big fan of deferring. I don't like.
I love ball at half, dude. Yeah. That's Madden rules 101.
It's Bill Belichick rules too, man. I love it. It's just the way I like. I just don't like giving the other team the ball to start the second half, particularly since the Steelers have not been winning or leading in any of these games.
No, man, I was banking on ball at half until it got to about 28-3 when it was like
in the first quarter.
10-3, 17-3, 21-3. I was like, all right, ball at half. And then when it got to 31-3, I was like, all right, we need a little more help.
You know what? We're laughing about this because I think you and I both, even though we said maybe they could compete a little bit with the Bills, but did we have a high expectation of victory yesterday? I don't think we did. I don't think anybody was saying this was a get-right game and this was whatever. I said, could they surprise the Buffalo Bills? Absolutely. And, but a lot of that was prefaced on, is it just going to be a shootout? And that shootout never occurred. And the reason we're thinking it's a shootout is because of the defensive injuries, the inability to put pressure on the quarterback, as you saw. And then that just opens up a secondary, which in the Steelers' case was also pretty ravaged by the time this game ended. And there were people.
We lost all three corners, top three corners.
You had guys running around wearing numbers. And I'm like, who instead of who day, it's like who dat, which is actually the Saints thing. But it's like, so the game starts, it's just 3 plays, 98 yards. The ball, this is a muffed kick return by, who was the returner? Jones, Taiwan Jones, right? And I believe for the Bills.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the game starts and Trey Norwood gets this down at the 2-yard line. You think they're going to put pressure on there. They're going to have good field position to start this game. It spells trouble. And then Trey Norwood plays. He inches way too close up to the line of scrimmage. He's practically hand in hand, if I'm trying to think properly, with Levi Wallace, I believe, on the Gabe Davis 98-yard touchdown. There was no safety help over the top. And Trey Norwood, unfortunately, I don't believe had a very good game. Some missed tackles, some blown coverage, and just wow. And that
he looked like a 7th-round pick.
Yes, he did. And that took the words right out of my mouth. And you had James Pierre then. You see the inactives. Gunnar Olszewski was inactive for the game. And I'm like, whoa, okay. Now you're going to have a change. So let's see what Steve Sims can do. And now you see he's questionable return with an eye injury. I'm like, does he have like a contact lens out of place, or did somebody thumb him in the eye by accident? Did he get like sand or dirt or a bug or something that flew in there? And as I say that, I had an eyelash just get in the way of mine. But he muffs this and Buffalo gets the ball. And you think, okay, the Steelers might still kind of be in this. They're down 7-0. This already looks terrible. It's going to be 14-0. But they hold the Bills. They get an offensive holding penalty out of this. They back them up. 2nd and 16, 3rd and 20. Alex Highsmith stops Stephon Diggs on a little screen pass attempt, loses 4 yards. And then the 49-yard field goal attempt is blocked by Cam Hayward. And you're like, all right, let's get to work. Let's cook. And then this is the series you were talking about that ends with this 3rd and 8. So it's a pass. It starts with the pass to Derek Watt for a yard. And you could just hear the balloon letting air out already. Because then Najee Harris loses 2 yards on a run, and it's 3rd and 11. And you have a laser of a pass to George Pickens. And it's just, you're like, whoa. Okay.
Love at first sight.
Yes.
That's how I describe it as. I was a little worried when the game started with the 2 plays that started it off. And then as soon as he hit Pickens, I was like, I don't know why I was ever worried about my man Kenny, man. That beautiful play, ice in his veins. He did that like 3 or 4 times while we still were in the game. He had incredible 3rd down conversions. The success rate had to be high. I didn't go back and look at it, but the 3rd down conversion rate for Pickett had to be high in the first half.
Yeah. And he even gets Chase Claypool involved.
Yes, yeah.
Chase Claypool gets involved. I think he catches the ball for about 11 yards here as I try and find my place again. Yes, 11 yards. Then Najee Harris gets a carry. So you're sprinkling it in, like you said, first down. So the first down there was to Chase Claypool. You get another first down, 6-yard run by Najee Harris. Incomplete pass for Deontay Johnson. This was batted. Then Zach Gentry for 8 yards. They moved the chains again. George Pickens again, 12 yards. That's a complete first down right there. Najee for 3. Najee for -1. Sets up the 3rd and 8. Kenny cross body. Almost picked off of right through the hands. I don't understand. How does it go through your hands? Like, I got to see somebody let me know how big. And we know how big Kenny's hands are. How big are Deontay's hands? Like, come on. Like, yeah. I don't know what's going on there. So Chris Boswell, 29-yarder that didn't look pretty, and then you're like, oh crap. Well, if we can't kick field goals, and I'm sitting here with the 1.5 prop bet, I'm like, well, they'll get another shot. I'm like, it's Boswell, you know what I mean? And maybe they'll kick in the other end or something like that. And the game script just totally screwed me because they were going for it on 4th down after that. So it's 7-3. And the defense does okay here, but I mean, they still gave up a deep middle pass to Khalil Shakir for 31 yards on a 2nd and 10. And Josh Allen scrambles for 16. Tried to catch Stephon Diggs, didn't. Allen stopped for 1 yard. Tried to go to Diggs again, also stopped. So it's a 35-yard field goal from Tyler Bass this time. Buffalo goes up 10-0. You start on first down. So here we go. We're going to see. This is almost the end of the first quarter. So it's Najee Harris, 3 yards. Pickett to Freiermuth for 13, but Gentry called for a hold down the field there. So 10 yards enforced at the 28 for the original line of scrimmage, backs him up to the 18.
That's when he tapped Von Miller on the shoulder and he fell down.
Yeah. And then, anyways, you know what? I have not complained about officiating too much this year. This was easily the worst officiated game that I've seen of the Steelers this season. It's just a couple things inexcusable when you got it. We're going to get right now. What's the final score? 38 or whatever, or maybe it was 31-3. You know, the one team's down almost 30 points. We're talking about 4 touchdowns. And John Hussey and his crew, you see the quarterback, the most important position on the field. Usually Tom Brady and his skirt gets blown in the wrong direction and they're throwing a flag, and Kenny Pickett just gets annihilated. And then you're going to call, you probably do have to throw the flag for the retaliation, but I've seen it happen where a guy goes and shoves somebody after it, and they just go in, they blow whistles, and they break everyone up, and then they're going to enforce the penalty. The right thing to do was to throw the flag for Kenny Pickett there. And instead this morning, I'm looking around, I'm hearing everything, and it's like there's a controversial roughing the passer call in a game yesterday, and it's not Kenny Pickett call, it's Tom Brady getting his skirt, a little bit of air up his skirt, and that ended up screwing up the Falcons, and that's why it's controversy. And you're just like, are you kidding me? And that
my life flashed before my eyes, man. I
know. It's like, geez, you're a step away from maybe Mason does get the nod then. I don't know. Do you go back to Mitch?
Probably.
Mitch was active, though. Mitch would have went back in. And here's another thing. There were people like the troll that caught me with the 10 numbers after his name on a Twitter handle earlier. don't come at me with Kenny's stats or saying this or that about the offense. So, some people are saying Matt Canada because they've seen 3 different quarterbacks in this and systems struggle. Some of this is still the offensive line's inability to run block, inability to get a run game established. You do have to run the football. That is an excellent point that you made. And it's not just, for when it gets to be inclement weather. Obviously, you have to there. But you got to mix this up, and this sets up the play actions and things too. This is why I wanted a few more jet sweeps. It's also why I wanted Najee involved in the pass game, not only middle of the field, but now they also have to respect that too, and it might open up where a linebacker has to play a little bit, or a safety has to play a little bit closer, and then you could heave it. Kenny could find those plays down the field where Mitch wasn't. I am convinced that Mitch, they would have probably punted 9 times. There would have been far more 3-and-outs, and maybe they don't even get 3 points out of this game. The extra field goal tries are even in the red zones. What was it? Kenny got in the red zone at least twice, and then there were 2 out of 3 field goals missed, so 5 scoring opportunities. Those probably wouldn't have been there if Mitch Trubisky's your guy. So I had to throw that out there real quick. But this, let me finish this one from the end of the first quarter here. This was, let me see. Kenny Pickett finds Deontay Johnson. So this was the offensive holding by Gentry, as you just mentioned. You get 11 yards, then he tries to find Deontay Johnson again. Doesn't come down with this pass, and Presley Harvin punts 69 yards. And I'm like, wow, nice. Not only because of the number, but nice punt. And then he follows that up with punts of 28 and 34 or 31 or something, and maybe the wind's part of it, and you can make some excuses, but when everything else is going wrong and you have Boz missing field goals, you're muffing kick returns, and your punter can only punt it 20 yards away when Josh Allen's throwing it 98, it's more than just, Matt Canada here. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's where you're at. And it's still only 10-3. So when we get to your point, Josh Allen's intercepted by Levi Wallace. What hell of a play. Turns around like he's a receiver, back shoulder, catches that ball. Steelers got some life.
Game.
Yeah, revenge game. Exactly right. I saw when you tweeted that out. Najee up middle, 6 yards. Okay, it's a first down run, 6 yards. I'm going to take that every day. You know what I mean? Najee Harris.
When it works, it's beautiful. Left guard,
no gain. And then he went for the little wheel route. It was 3rd and 4, and I thought that this is exactly what I was looking for, but it was snuffed out. And Najee only gets 2. It was a little slow moving. I still think something isn't right with him. There are people that are starting to question. They're saying the Steelers have bad drafts. They're starting to question whether he should have been a first-round pick last year. And I'm like, just get off your high horse already. This is just ridiculous. There's a lot of things that aren't working well for this team, and this guy is pretty much, we're going to find out later on in the season that he's going to have surgery or something on this foot, maybe even after the season.
It's so clear that he's hurt. It obviously. I mean, look at Minka and Cam Hayward, same deal yesterday. That's why, people, they get caught up and they call me an apologist, and I'm not a realist, but I think the defense is a lot better than what we're seeing, man. The thing is, TJ Watt, he is that valuable. What do you think MVP stands for? That's the new movement that I'm seeing that I just can't stand. And don't tell me TJ Watt's that important. Where have you been? He is that important.
The standard. If you have two TJ Watts, you're playing them both. They're both starting. Come on.
But what I was getting at with Najee, it's clear that he's hurt, man. He's not playing at his best. He's got a lingering foot injury, and I'm not saying that he isn't playing below standards, but I am giving him an excuse because I think it's clear that he's out there fighting through injury and fighting through pain to play, because that's an expected thing in the NFL. If you're not in severe pain and you're not dying, they want you to play. Trainers, staff, you get almost pressured into it. And Najee's a grown man. He's making his own decisions, and I'm glad to see him out there. But he's definitely playing hurt. And I think it's almost as obvious as when you see Minka yesterday chasing down, I think it was Shakur. Like you said, he's chasing him for 30 yards and just can't catch up because he's not running at full speed. Cam Hayward, noticeably, to say it bluntly, he's been a ghost because he's playing so hurt. He's got a hurt arm and a hurt leg. That's 2 out of 4 extremities that Cam Hayward is playing hurt with. And so you have to look at it that way. And some fans don't want to hear it. They think, that's not an acceptable excuse. But we got guys going out there playing hurt, and they're big time names for us. So I think it explains a lot of the dip in production that we're seeing is these injuries piling up, and then you take into account the poor coaching decisions, and not only the players that are staying in the game playing, but the players we lost. I briefly mentioned we were without our top 3 corners yesterday at one point. We lost Fryermuth, which, isn't it funny how we lost 3 players to concussions yesterday? Not a single flag thrown. Not a single flag thrown
Especially
on any of the concussions.
And they just made a big deal of this with the whole Tua thing and changed the whole policy. You would think there would be a referee point of emphasis that look for the headshots now. I know they don't like to change that in season necessarily, but hello, NFL.
I've never seen 3 concussions in one game for one team.
This is your image on display here. Yeah, I don't understand that one. I really don't.
Levi was playing good, like you said. Revenge game, man. He let up the big play in the beginning, but I think that was more on Trey Norwood than Levi, and it's a shame that we had to lose him too, because he was one of the lone bright spots of the defense for a hot second there, coming up big with the interception, and I think he had a breakup or 2 as well. So he was playing as good as you could have asked for, and then you lose him to a concussion, as well as already having Witherspoon out and Cam Sutton. Losing him is probably the biggest deal of any cornerback, because he's your like, oh, well, if we lose this guy, at least Cam Sutton can play inside. Well, when you lose Cam Sutton, that it only goes downhill from there with the cornerback room.
Yeah, and he slides deep often, like into a safety coverage position, and yeah, he's versatile. He's a chess piece. It really sucks. Let me get back to the second quarter play calling, as we were saying. So after the interception, I think maybe I'd already, the 6-yard, the no gain. So you had the 2 runs, first down, second down, incompletion. And then you get to, let's see, Buffalo gets the ball, 1st and 10 from their 38. Josh Allen steps back to pass and effortlessly finds Gabe Davis again, 62 yards, 1 play, 62 yards, 10 seconds off the clock. Yikes. And this is why the Steelers won time of possession this time around. It wasn't the way you would like it to.
I was peeing. I was taking a pee when that happened. And I heard the TV like screaming, and I said, that doesn't sound like good screams for the Steelers, and ran out and saw Gabe Davis in the end zone. And again, I thought, oh, it's a replay. No worries. No, wasn't a replay. It was just the exact same thing.
Imagine being the guy who was watching. I know we have Charles that's always listening in, and he's a Browns fan because he likes to listen to all these different AFC North shows and stuff. And he's been actually pretty sympathetic or complimentary to, the Steelers being 1 and whatever right now for being a Browns fan, because he knows he doesn't have a whole lot of room to talk. But imagine taking the leak when you're the rookie kicker, he hit this against Carolina like in week 1, no worries, and they got the Chargers at home, and just it whiffs too. I mean, it's kicking, man. I'm out on Presley Harvin. I'm sorry, and I've seen enough. It's just too inconsistent. I don't think having Jordan Berry on your practice squad's really much of a help either, and it's unfortunate that you don't lose a guy just because his father passed away, and they kind of gave him they gave him the weekend or whatever to get right mentally and this and that last year. They had Corliss Waitman. Before that, the year before that. And I wish they would have given him an opportunity even when Barry was still here. And he's been doing pretty well in Denver, where there's another example of they got the quarterback, they got all the pieces, and things just aren't working there either. I mean, they got a lot that was invested in the offensive line. They just lost Javonte Williams and Russell Wilson, of course, and they gave him and tore up that contract, gave him a new big one. But I saw a lot of names out there. You were mentioning guys that were getting hurt. I'm going to get back to the play calling, but since I got this right in front of me and we were talking about Levi Wallace, can anyone identify 16? I almost thought last week it was like, oh, hey, is Kelvin Austin back? Oh, wait, that's not Kelvin Austin. He's wearing Juju's old number. So who on earth is wearing 16? That's not George Pickens. Oh, no, this is a defensive back, Josh Jackson, who was a former second-round pick, Green Bay Packers. And the reason he's formerly of all of those is, well, it was put on display yesterday, quite frankly. So you had him out there, and James Pierre out there, and Trey Norwood out there, and poor Minka's on an island for a ball that right here, 62 yards, Minka should have... should have maybe come away with. It's just the momentum. It's just things were not rolling in the Steelers' direction. He could have had that pick. Rip that away.
No one's more upset than Minka after that play, man. You could see on the sideline he was fuming. Might have just been the cool crisp air in Buffalo, but there was steam coming off of his head, and like it looked like he was unapproachable on the sideline. So, yeah, Minka knows more than anyone he should have had that pick, man. I don't know how it's going to be a cold day in hell when you catch me critiquing Minka
Oh,
Fitzpatrick, but
absolutely.
it seemed like he could have, like, I don't know. Yeah, he got a little out muscled for that ball once Gabe Davis got both hands on it, but Minka only had one arm on it, so
Yep. We're talking about two grown men fighting for the football,
easier said than done.
runaway trains. That's why I said like the momentum kind of was in the favor of Davis. That was a shame he couldn't get another hand on that. So that was only 17-3. This game's like not completely gone. There's only like 5 minutes into the second quarter. Maybe there's still an opportunity for the Steelers to do something. So let's run Najee up the middle for a yard twice in a row. This is where it gets annoying. Up until this point, it was okay. And you know what? You're thinking about the last time. We got 6 yards off of this. Maybe we can make it third manageable.
Yeah, I can see that. They want to make it third manageable for Kenny.
And run some clock so you maybe keep this a little closer and don't let Buffalo blow the doors off of you, and you get some points before half because you had a 5 or 6 minute drive, which happens when you run the football, not when you throw incomplete passes. And then you get the ball again to start the second half. So I'm sympathetic to some of the thought process, and in hindsight, it's a lot easier to critique. Again, this was another pass that was intended for Deontay Johnson, broken up by Matt Milano, and then Presley Harvin with a 26-yard punt. And then it only took 2 plays, 53 yards from the Buffalo 47, because that's where the punt landed. And you had Miles Jack with unnecessary roughness, 15 yards. Funny how they call that one. And then they found Stephon Diggs just kind of roaming. I mean, indefensible, pretty much an indefensible play there between two guys that have played a lot of football together, which is what it's what my expectation is of Pickett to Pickens to become. Pickens definitely looks like a dude, and I think Kenny looks pretty calm, but now you're at 24-3. And this is the drive that ends with the Boswell 33-yard field goal on 4th and 5 from the Buffalo 15. And you're thinking at 24-3. This was one of the only good points that was made on that late night show that I was watching yesterday, and Bob Pompiani had said it. Like, it's 24-3. What good is a field goal going to do you at this point? I know coaches don't like to leave points on the scoreboard, but we knew the winds were swirling, and we already knew things weren't going very well. I think he's thinking, does it really demoralize this team? You could give the ball at the Buffalo 15. Like, let them have the ball at the 15. They've been scoring at will wherever they want anyway. So, like, how much more is this going to hurt? This is one where I will question. This is a Mike Tomlin one, and I know he probably sees some ghosts of whatever passed on 4th downs and not converting and this and that. But just grab the cojones and put your head down and do it, because it ends up being 8 plays in 77 yards, about 2.5 minute drive that ends with a 24-yard Josh Allen to Khalil Shakir touchdown connection. James Pierre injured on the play, and they're just dropping like flies at that point.
Not only is it chicken shit to not go for it there on Tomlin's part, and again, I love Tomlin, but yesterday that was a bad call. You got to take into consideration the fact that Kenny Pickett, which I mentioned earlier, he was doing so well on converting 3rd downs and coming up big in big time moments. His like it factor and his gamer factor was shining through at points yesterday. So another reason I think they should have gone forward on 4th down there. Yeah, you're getting blown out anyway at that point, in a sense, to the best team in the NFL. You've got it down in the red zone. I think Kenny's post-game presser, there was some reading between the lines when you listen to what he was saying about, he said the words "in the red zone" like 7 times. It was a 5-minute presser, and he said "in the red zone" like 7 times, because I think he was mad at play calling, and I think he was mad at not being able to go forward on the 4th down, because he had us in there. What felt like, you said 2 or 3 times we didn't score. That feels right, that we were in the red zone. I know, because there's 2 Boswell misses for sure. And there feels like there may have been 2 or 3 other times aside from that we just didn't get points after moving the ball. So you got to finish drives. It's a simple thing to say. It's harder to do, but you got to finish drives, especially when your quarterback is showing you that he can convert. He knows where the sticks are. He's got that football IQ. So give him a shot. What do you have to lose? You're 1-3 or 1-4 against the best team in football. Just go for it at that point. Because if you
Yeah.
can jog back to the sideline at 24-10, that's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to get the boys riled
And
up and
getting the
hyped up to
ball
come
and
back
getting the
up there.
ball. They would have ran that into
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe up to the 2-minute warning. I mean, that's where I was going to go. I mean, the Steelers had 364 net yards. They ran 72 offensive plays. The Buffaloes 54 for 552. Yikes. That's why I'm like, maybe Terrell Austin's the one we got to point our attention to. And if Mike Tomlin's still there and he truly is the architect in calling some of the defensive plays, but at the same time, I still got to give him a pass and some excuses too, because I need to pull up that image of number 16 again, wherever I lost it, because it's like, who is that out there on the field? Oh, you've got Ryan Anderson and Jameer Jones out there and Robert Spillane and like I
Spillane
said,
sucks. I'm sick of
I'm
sick of the Yinzer like crush on Bob Spillane. Like, oh yeah, he's a Pittsburgh linebacker. Like, dude, he's not good. He's not good. Okay, he had his time where he shined, where he was a downhill thumper for like 7 or 8 games, like 2 years ago. But anytime he's out there, it's a problem. He doesn't provide anything. Okay, he picked 6 Lamar Jackson that one time. Lamar threw it right in his face, and I'm a Lamar fan, but he couldn't have made it any easier on Bob Spillane.
and he
I
nearly
don't think
should have
he's a
had
good
one
player.
yesterday the same way too, right?
Yeah, he should have. He should have, and he didn't. He's not good. And I'm tired of the Bob Spillane things. I know there's no other option to move on from at this point, but I hope this is the last year that the Steelers convince themselves that, oh, Robert Spillane's actually better than he gets credit for. No, he's about as good as what he gets credit for, which isn't very.
No, he's done. I believe he was pretty much restricted I think he was a restricted free agent this year, and that's the reason they brought him back. It's like contract years. I laugh and I chuckle about the people who are like, hey, trade away Mitch Trubisky. Maybe that's something that could happen, but I don't think it does. I think he just gets released next year. They just still keep him around for insurance and to help mentor young Kenny Pickett, the Padawan learner. Trade. It's the same thing as Mason Rudolph, like about a month and a half ago. Trade Chase Claypool. And it's like, well, if anybody thinks, like, if you think Chase Claypool sucks, then what are you getting for him? Because everyone else has got to be thinking that too. They're not magically thinking, oh, this team wants to get rid of like Tyreek Hill or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just not in the same category. What are you going to get for him? And
You have to package Chase Claypool and like a 2nd round pick to get like a 3rd round pick back. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense.
oh man, screw you for doing that. Now I need to have a swig of coffee.
It's true though. You have to be reasonable with your trade package suggestions because that's what people sound like most of the time. And Mitch could get traded. Yeah, put a pin in that because he doesn't seem like a guy who I've heard rumors and stories since getting benched. He's definitely like, there's one thing to be disappointed with losing your starting position, but I think he feels pretty. And I don't blame him, but play better, dude. I said last show, I don't feel bad for him. And I think we saw on full display that Kenny Pickett is the better quarterback. So it isn't the Steelers' fault, but I can understand why he's salty because I think despite the rumors and stories that Tomlin wanted to keep riding with Mitch, I think the pressure was on. And I think similar to his last year in Chicago, everybody was waiting with bated breath for him just to play bad enough so he got benched. And whether he thinks that's fair or not, I don't really care because Kenny's better. But I can understand why he would feel like slighted, and he'll probably be out of here by next year.
Oh yeah, there was somebody already that was getting in. I love it. I shouldn't, but I do sometimes comment like on Facebook, and somebody was like, oh, well, Mitch was just held back by play calling, this and that, like trying to insinuate that the Steelers would have had a better shot with the Bills if Mitch was in there instead of Kenny. And I'm like, well, Kenny wasn't the problem. Like, but overall, it was not the problem. You put Mitch in there, and I threw out the stats as I had before, and I'm like, he can't even throw for 200 yards in a game, and Kenny threw for 200 and a half. And I just got like an LOL or something, yeah, whatever, back. And I'm like, well, yeah, you're the one who made this post. Like, defend why you're saying this. Like, come up with something. Well, I don't care what he did with another team. Well, you should, because it's 4 years of patterns on how the guy has played, and it's been like hot flaming garbage for the most part.
Kenny was the only good part of yesterday, really. I mean, you can point to a couple of things here and there, the Levi Wallace interception, George Pickens playing very well again. That's something we can cling to. But really, Kenny Pickett was the only good part of yesterday. So if you're like talking like, oh, well, we need to see more, like I'm not satisfied with what I saw, I feel like you're just reaching and like piling on the Steelers at this point because there's plenty to be upset about. Plenty went wrong. He played like shit, but Kenny Pickett did not.
Yeah, and the Steelers, I mean, they were 0-4, by the way, in the red zone. So 4 trips in the red zone officially. But Buffalo was 1 of 4, believe that or not. Third down,
They scored from 59 yards away minimum.
98. Like longest play, longest everything. It's like the Steelers are like in the habit of making historical records that are opposite, that don't benefit them anymore.
Making dreams come true.
For the wrong people, the Make-A-Wish Bills or whatever. They had 23 first downs. Bills only had 21 because the Bills didn't need, they were just striking and striking hot. But that's what I'm saying.
That's an impressive number, 23 first downs for the Steelers.
Yeah, that might be the best that they've done all year, to be completely honest. Even like the 5 to 15, 33%, that's not like completely god awful, especially when you already have 23 first downs, because in most cases they weren't getting the first downs. They were waiting all third and long and stuff like that. They were always in a bad third down spot and then just not converting it. Where was I at though on this? Anyways, yeah, one of these right at the end of the half, and I wanted to put this in before I got into some of the numbers and the offensive snaps and stuff and talking about some of the players who played and making maybe a little bit of excuse for the defense. Some of this does happen though, because Mike Tomlin did pull guys late and let some other guys play, but there was enough people banged up. And like you said, Freiermuth coming off didn't necessarily do them any favors either. So entering or just about before halftime here, Kenny Pickett gets the ball with just under a minute left. And I believe the Steelers had all of their timeouts at this point. And he had a short pass to Najee for 5 yards. And he took a sack from Russo. And it was just like one of this like really short sack right at the line of scrimmage, but it was an offside play with Von Miller, if you recall. And now Kenny's going to take a shot. The Steelers are on their own 37. He goes down the field for guess who? Deontay Johnson. And there was a miscue there. And it makes me wonder, like, that was the only ball that was like, okay, where was this supposed to go? Did somebody was Kenny wrong or was Deontay wrong? There was somebody that was off cue there. They weren't on the same page. And that was a pass that how far did this ball travel? I'd like to see probably 20-some yards downfield. Not quite a punt, but they tried to take a little bit deeper of a shot and try to inch themselves a little closer because there was 23 seconds left on the clock at this point after the penalty. So whether or not they get another 3 or something on the board is really, what we're probably discussing here, but it would have been something feather in their cap before halftime. But let's just rewind and say Buffalo did everything they were doing. It was 31-3, and the Steelers had actually went for it on that 4th down. Maybe Deontay gets his foot in or something like that, and you're looking at 31-10. Maybe they get another field goal here at the end of the half instead of an interception, and you're looking at 31-13. You come out of halftime and you have a chance to get, within maybe, what did I say, 13? So 31-20 or something like that. And I think it's more manageable, and you may have, but the defense just wasn't going to stop anybody based on some of the players who played. For example, Larry Ogunjobi only played 7 snaps out of 56 in this game. That's a 9%. The only players who played less playing time yesterday were Miles Killebrew with 5 snaps and Ryan Anderson, who got completely signed and brought up from the practice squad. He played 3. Bob Spillane played over a third of the game, 34%. DeMarvin Leal. I thought DeMarvin Leal had a pretty solid game, and maybe one other.
Oh, yeah. Want to mention him for sure. That went over my head when I was talking about the lone positives of the game. Leal played a really, really nice game. I mean, I had multiple people texting me. I saw on Twitter. Like, I think it's a general opinion at this point. Safe to say it's a consensus take that DeMarvin Leal is shaping up to be a good player for the Steelers. He gets his hands up, man. He's such a Steeler lineman through and through, because Cam Hayward and Tuitt over the years have been so good at getting those hands up and knocking balls down. And people don't realize, but that's a really important play. That's essentially an incomplete pass is what it is. And when you can get in the habit of doing that, it's a really nice feather to have in your cap as a defensive lineman. And he's showing that talent early, and he plays with good strength, good leverage, good get off the ball. So he's playing at a very encouraging pace right now. I think he'll slowly but surely probably be playing like high 70% of snaps towards the end of the season.
Yeah, he got 41% in this one.
There you go.
Some of the other names to highlight: Trey Norwood played the full game, all 56 snaps. He's the only player who did. Of course, Minka, Miles Jack, Alex Highsmith, all hovering. Highsmith 86%, Jack 95, which is probably definitely a high for him. Minka usually doesn't come out. He came out for 2 plays. Who knows when? Maybe at the end of the game. Arthur Mallette plays 45 snaps, 80% of the game in this one. This just tells you how banged up they were in the secondary.
He's scrappy, but he's just not very good. I think he's good at like filling sometimes on run, and he's a good blitzer. He really is the true like poor man's Mike Hilton. You know, that's what I think Mallette is. He's not anything special. He tries really hard, but yeah, when you got him playing almost all of the snaps, that's not good.
You know, I saw that there's still always gets brought up when they mention Mike Hilton's name, like on the Sunday night game, and he's playing with the Bengals, and they're talking about how he start with the Steelers, and then all of a sudden you're going to see comments of why didn't they keep this guy? And you realize they were like $40 million over the cap after this COVID thing in 2021. And I know stretching out Ben one more year, but that really stretched them. People, there's like this, like I said, one of these personalities that was on that show. They're on like local radio in Pittsburgh. And they're talking about, like, people are starting to get these ideas besides Fire Mac Canada. They're talking about how all of these drafts are poor year in and year out. I totally disagree with that. Like, you got somebody like Cam Sutton, for example, that you lose. Devin Bush, regresses due to injury. And then you can't fill in middle linebacker. But who else were you getting besides Devin Bush? Like, it's the same thing as the Najee Harris argument now, whether or not he was a first-round pick and what you could have done better. There was nobody on the offensive line you were going to take that would have been a better pick at the first round than what Najee Harris has already provided to your team performance-wise and from a leadership standpoint. You go and look at Devin Bush, and it's not like Devin White's lighting up the scoreboards anymore either. If you go and check out Tampa, and that's the upcoming opponent, who I think is a winnable game, by the way. The defense got to get their act together because, like, for example, I was going to bring up Malik Reed here. Like, do people even know who that is anymore? They trade for him, and it's just like, the depth isn't there because these players that are getting drafted are playing and usually playing significant amounts of time for the most part. You have a 7th-round pick of Trey Norwood playing a full amount of the game. You could say the standard's the standard as much as you want, but the fact of the matter is that when you do draft well or you make smart decisions, let's say in the case of TJ Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, then you have to pay those players. Then you can't retain some of the other players that you had in the past, like a Javon Hargrave, for example, or you had the thing that happened with Stephon Tuitt. Those are good draft picks, but the NFL is all about parity, and there is a salary cap, and there's only so many of these great players that you could keep.
Bud Dupree.
At any given time. Bud Dupree's another one, and that's how that season fell apart with the 11-0 2020. First, it was Bush, which is very much the shades of like Ryan Shazier going down in 2017, which I will always contend if Shazier doesn't get hurt, that team wins the Super Bowl. They were lights out. You know what I mean? And maybe Todd Haley's still the offensive coordinator. You don't know. He doesn't get scapegoated on those fourth and whatever, and Ben throwing picks and Ben being mad at him. Of course, his contract was up, so he might have still been out. You're placating the quarterback in some cases, and where have we seen this happen before? Oh, just about anywhere else. There's a hotshot diva quarterback making, significant amounts or sums of money, or you send him out of town like Russell Wilson. So that's what happens. Anyways, like just getting, excuse me, full circle with that. When you lose certain pieces, yeah, of course, losing TJ Watt, that affects Cam Hayward. That affects Alex Highsmith as well. I think it affects the whole defense. Malik Reed can't jump in there, and they're playing Leal as an edge rusher when they were supposed to be playing him as more of like the hybrid defensive tackle, defensive end, like a Cam Hayward or Larry Ogunjobi. And Ogunjobi goes down too. So then you have Montravius Adams plays almost half a game. Josh Jackson plays 46% of the game in the secondary. Wormley probably close to a high, I would imagine, with 52 without looking, but Sutton only plays 54% of the game. Malik Reed plays 57% of this game. Mallette by far at 80% was the biggest surprise. But like I said, having Pierre in there 41% of the time, Josh Jackson in there 46% of the time, and Jameer Jones came in probably just a little bit later. The defense is ravaged, and I don't know how you stop a team that hasn't been punting against anyone else up until this point with basically preseason and off the street type names. I mean, like Ryan Anderson was not a guy that was on this roster. Josh Jackson was not on this roster. Pierre was on the bubble of being on this team. Just a lot of it's really difficult to try and say, oh yeah,
but they should have prepared, Joe. They should have prepared for all these guys to get hurt. They should have infinite depth. They should Tomlin needs to prepare better. He needs to know these things are going to happen. He needs to be ready when all 4 of his top cornerbacks get hurt and his best player on defense and the best defensive player is, you know what I mean, dude? Like, we're to this point where people get so mad because they're so emotionally invested. And I feel for those people. I do. I want answers too. But sometimes the answer is right in front of your face, man. Like, the defense is bad right now. We're trash. We're horrible. We hold the first overall pick in the draft. But we're suffering through injuries, man. There's all of our best players are hurt, like all of them on defense.
Highest paid defense, but they're all on the bench.
Yes. And the people critiquing the draft picks, everybody loved the Najee and Freiermuth picks last year, but they're hurt this year. So now all of a sudden they're bad picks. Like, miss me with that, dude. And yeah, you've already brought up a good point about Bud Dupree ended up being a really good pick. We just couldn't afford to keep him around. And when you look at Claypool was a good pick as a rookie. He's declined. And Dotson, good player as a rookie. He's declined. So is it the drafting? Is it the player development? Is it the player themselves? Dotson and Claypool both have admitted on numerous accounts that they didn't take the NFL seriously enough until this year. Claypool literally said to media before walking into his dorm at St. Vincent this year, yeah, I kind of took it easy last year and just thought I'd be as good as I was as a rookie. Huh, boy, was I wrong. So, like, these are good. A lot of these are good picks, but they just have to, like, develop, and they have to do when they're at their peaks. We see how good they can be. And it's easy to critique and it's easy to bitch about the draft picks when things aren't going well. I'm sure if Najee was healthy and Pat didn't get concussed yesterday and put up like 10 catches and you still had Bud Dupree in town and Devin Bush never got hurt, like, and TJ Watt was playing, there wouldn't be this conversation of like, oh, now the draft classes all of a sudden all suck. Highsmith too. Yeah, thank you. He's working out. So I think our draft classes aren't really like an issue that needs to be touched on right now. I think the main problem is the injuries to the defense, because there's a lot of them, mainly TJ Watt, who matters a lot. And then it's a trickle down to, because him being out, the rush defense is bad. And because the rush defense is bad, the defense in general gets tired. And then we get blown out of games and the offense can't keep up because we only have 10 or 15 plays that work. And then after we go through them, we can't run through them again for some reason. And it's just, we're in a rebuilding phase right now, whereas it's got an asterisk attached to it, because I think we're still a competitive enough team when healthy that we can kind of win through the rebuild and still put competitive football on the field. But we are dealing with a mountain of bad circumstances right now around this team. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that while also saying, yeah, we suck, but like, here's all the reasons why, man. It isn't like there's no secrets. I don't think there isn't any stone that isn't being unturned. And thank God Kenny Pickett looks good.
I know. Well, and you know what? And everyone in the NFL, and it's just one game to look by, but man, you know, coming into Buffalo and in those circumstances and looking as sharp as he did, it gives me some hope. And that is the title at the bottom here. Is there any hope left for the 2022 Pittsburgh Steelers? And by covering this post game, it almost sounds like there isn't, but I think there is. And at some point when me and Brian looked at this back in July, we keep bringing this up, we only had like 1 or 2 wins on the schedule up until the bye. We really did. And it was like, we looked at the Jets game as probably one, and maybe like the Dolphins or Eagles, but we didn't think they would turn out how they are. And we still don't know what the Dolphins are going to look like. And the Eagles, well, they don't win in Cincinnati. Philadelphia, they did win in Cincinnati. I was going to say, nobody was saying any of these things if nobody got hurt. And like, nobody was saying these things when they beat Cincinnati. And I was saying this. I was terrified of having Mitch Trubisky in there. And now you see what happens. It puts you in a hole again with some winnable games. They probably still could have won at least New England. I think if Kenny Pickett comes in, maybe you get something going there.
We would have beat the Patriots with Kenny Pickett 1,000%. I just said that to my buddy yesterday.
Too. Yeah, short week at Cleveland too. You know, and I understand maybe Tomlin didn't want to play him 3 games within 11 game span for a rookie. Maybe it's a little too much. Maybe you want to bring him along a certain way, but should have started him against the Jets. I think that game is also a winnable game. Now, where are the winnable games? You got the doors blown off by Buffalo, but Tampa hasn't been blowing the doors off of people, but they can certainly blow the doors off of having Josh Jackson, James Pierre, Trey Norwood, no TJ Watt. You give Tom Brady all day, he will find Mike Evans, he will find Chris Godwin. Leonard Fournette is a dude that's capable. I know they want to try and limit some of his touches and not wear him down necessarily. Those are some things we'll be looking at later this week. But then you got 2 road games against the Dolphins and the Eagles. And can the Steelers at least pull out one of these games? You got to hope that they do. I think if they at least go, if you got them at 2-6, and I know everybody's going to be pouring dirt over them on their grave. And then they still have 9 more games left of the season against the Saints, a Bengals team that they have beat. And that seems to struggle at times. We saw that even last night. Even the games that the Bengals have won haven't necessarily been in the cleanest fashion. The Colts are struggling. The Falcons are struggling. The Ravens is always a close slugfest. And maybe if you have the healthy defense, if you don't, and just, close up shop, maybe it's the number 1 pick overall in the draft. Carolina Panthers, who just fired Matt Rule, their head coach, and there's probably some idiot Yinzer somewhere that's saying, well, that's what the Steelers got to do. And it's like, well, it's a little bit different of a set of circumstances here too. They're going to say, well, the last 10 years, Tim Tebow, Blake Bortles, just miss me with that too. Like I said, the injuries, come back at me and tell me how many games that Mike Tomlin had to killer bees in the playoffs. All this regular season success don't mean anything. Well, give him his full team in the playoffs, and then maybe that's a little bit different of a story, bro. But I look at the rest of this: Panthers, Raiders, and then Ravens and Browns, where you close out. Of course, the Browns will have maybe play Deshaun Watson by then. I don't know. Brissett's been playing pretty well, but it's still just enough to keep the ship afloat, right? It's nothing too dynamic. I don't think he necessarily just outright wins you games. And they probably will make that switch to Watson there sometime when he's eligible to come back, week 13 or whatever. So that Browns team might look different too. But I think people hate hearing 500 ball, but I say 9 games left and they have 2 wins and they can go 7-2. They might make the postseason still after that. And everybody's gonna be like, Joe, you're absolutely freaking insane by even suggesting something like this. What are you on? You need to switch to decaf. I'm telling you, it's the way we looked at this initially, objectively. Steelers always a slow starting team. Then the injuries piling on this makes it even harder. And now you've got the rookie in there. You're giving him some stuff, putting some stuff under, getting him some experience. The hardest part of your schedule is going to be in the rearview mirror. He's already going to be playing against tougher competition. And I think that's the iron sharpening iron, as we tend to hear Mike Tomlin say. And, perhaps this team gets better as you go on. And if it doesn't, and Mike Tomlin has his first losing season, you're going to have everybody calling for his head and this and that. You realize how hard it is to win in the NFL. You just need a reset sometimes. Bill Cowher had to have a couple of down seasons in order to acquire in 3 straight drafts Troy Polamalu, Ben Roethlisberger, and Heath Miller. And that nucleus is what lifted. You had a Hall of Fame defensive player and a Hall of Fame offensive player. And maybe that's what's in the Steelers' sights heading forward. They may add somebody else. They already got TJ there. You know what I mean? And if Kenny continues just the way he is right now, that's more than plenty enough. That's better than half of the league's quarterbacks already and quarterback play that we see around there. So I'm not necessarily downtrodden, because going into this game with Buffalo is just kind of we'll put it this way. I wasn't buying tickets and making a trip to Buffalo. I kind of knew what that was like. And Buffalo is not a destination vacation spot for anybody.
I don't even care if we're competitive or the Steelers win another game. I want the Steelers to win games this year. That makes everything better. But it's kind of cool. I'm in this weird limbo. I've never experienced it before where we can keep losing. As long as Kenny Pickett looks good, I'm making jokes about it with friends and on Twitter. As long as Kenny Pickett looks good, the season isn't a total loss, man, because quarterback is that important in sports. Obviously football, but it's such a big deal to have a franchise quarterback. As long as Kenny continues to make steps and look better and better and display the it factor that he has already, I'm totally fine. I'm fine. I'm looking forward to next year. And I've never been in this state. Normally I'd be so bummed out about today, about getting the doors blown off of us in Buffalo. But Kenny looked good at the end of the day. I do think if we get healthier and TJ comes back and Kenny and George Pickens continue to play well and the O-line continues to play better than expected, we could hit 10-7, 9-8. And with the parity in the NFL, that could sneak you into that 7th spot. So I'm not saying I don't want us to win games, but yeah, I'm at peace mentally just as long as Kenny Pickett keeps playing well. It's really all I care about at this point because we're so bad. That's why. It isn't that it's all I care about all the time, but we're so bad right now. As long as Kenny Pickett can look good, that's like helping me sleep at night.
I'm in that same weird limbo area that you're in too. Where I'm like, okay, win is a loss, not a loss. Like, I think there's just some people that like to wear their stuff on Monday and get in other people's face and say, oh, look, I'm a Steelers fan, and rub it in someone's face. And, for the last 20 some years, they've been able to do that, maybe even 30 years for the most part. I mean, you go back to 92.
They pull out the credentials on you, Mikey and Big Bob. I've been a fan since the Steel Curtain, and they would never accept this back then.
That drives me crazy. It was like that one game. I know I've told you this story before many times, but I accidentally drank too much on my birthday, that Monday night game against the Dolphins. People were giving me shots at the party next to me in the tailgate lot. We walk in. I had a friend with me. My cousin who usually sits with me took his then wife, so he sat somewhere else for the game. So this guy had never been with me before to help steer the ship in the right direction, right? And I ended up one section over to what I'm usually. And I sat there for almost the whole first quarter before the actual seat owners showed up and then notified us that we were in the wrong spot. And these two old dudes next to us just went to start getting on us like we were squatting there. And he was like, I've been here for 30 years. And I'm like, this stadium hasn't even been around 30 years, man. I'm like, and if you've been around so long, like, why would you just let me sit in someone else's seats? Do you not, like, know the people next to you? Like, I have the phone number of the guys that sit next to me, like, in there at I almost said Heinz, at Acrisure. Can't get used to saying that, but like, we're friends, you know what I mean? It's like, you've been here for 30 years, so you've been sitting here on the dirt pile, like, just, that stuff drives me crazy. But yeah, people
were winning probably. You were probably good luck and they didn't want you to move.
Oh, but they've been through the 80s, bro. The 80s, where it was the dark ages, and they went through all this, and they could tell you what it was like, and they could tell you this and that. And I could tell you right now without having really any. I was born in 81, so I don't really have much memories other than Browns fans rubbing Bobby Brister's name in my face.
That's killing me too, dude. The dark days thing, because all these old Yinzers think they were so right, being like, we told you after Big Ben left it'd be dark days. It doesn't count, man, because it isn't because Big Ben isn't here. Like, the quarterback is solved. So I hate that, the whole, like, I told you after Big Ben left, Steeler fans were in for a bruise in here. Like, but it's not why you thought that, though. You know what I mean? Like, the quarterback issue isn't an issue. We got our quarterback. It's the rest of the team. So, yeah, you were right. You can get your rocks off that these are some dark days currently, but they should be short-lived, because at the end of the day, we have the hardest thing to figure out in football figured out, and that is our quarterback position.
And even if Kenny doesn't work out long-term, I think it's figured out at least for the next couple of years. And I think he still gives you an opportunity to compete. He doesn't look completely lost. He doesn't look like a deer in headlights out there. You see some guys that are just
very poised.
Absolutely just bad. And that's what Tony Romo's points were. Let me pull up the tweet real quick. I want to go back to your Chase Claypool and the regression thing that people are going on. We mentioned this once before, but his first year was 62 receptions, 873 yards, 14.1 yards per reception. Last year was 59, 3 fewer catches for 860 yards, an uptick of a half yard per reception. The only difference here was he didn't have that 4-touchdown game that blows his numbers up from 9 to 2 touchdowns, but at the same time, and he didn't have the rushing touchdowns.
He had less big plays too. Less plays to point at and be like, wow, look at this. But like, that matters though.
Yeah, I mean, his numbers are still, he played exactly pretty much the same. And it was 105 targets to 109 to 105. So the catch percentage and everything is just still the same. Now, if you're going to take his numbers this year, he's only on pace to catch about 400 some yards. And I forget how many, I had it up on the screen at one point here. Over a 17-game span, 54 receptions, but only 439 yards. Like, that's not good. But same in the reception spot. But somebody had tweeted out something, they're talking about, in general, fire Matt Canada, give Pickens the ball, draft offensive line, play Jalen Warren, call Joe Hayden. Joe Hayden just retired. He just had fanfare in Cleveland. He's done. I don't think bringing a 33-year-old Joe Hayden out, he wouldn't have been starting yesterday. And if he gets hurt, you still got Josh Jackson and James Pierre out there. Like, where do you come up with this? Okay, maybe Warren. If Warren can protect the football, maybe I lean more towards him. Maybe if you got to get Najee right, go right ahead. I mean, you just did a knee operation to Watt to give him a little bit more time and get him at 100%. And he's worth every penny. You got to get him there. Okay, fire Matt Canada. You still got the same playbook, and get George Pickens the ball. What in the? I'm gonna have to bleep myself out here. Caught myself. Do you think they've been doing 6 catches, 102, 6 catches, 83 yards last 2 games? Is that not
that
getting
last
him the
one's
ball?
a bit redundant. I love Pickens, but that last one, it's like they have been since Kenny Pickett got the job. He's been lighting it up. In fact, my preseason prop is alive again. The one where I picked him to lead all rookies in receiving yards. If that hits, I get $100. So I'm keeping a watchful eye on that. I don't think Rookie of the Year is. He might be like top 10 still for Rookie of the Year, but that's going to be a hard feat for him to accomplish. But leading all rookies in receiving yards, that's definitely doable, especially with the past 2 games. Because what did he have 100 yesterday? High 90s?
It was what did I say? 86. I just lost 86? It, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, I accidentally closed the browser tab. As is
there aren't a lot of rookie receivers like 83. Leading 83. Okay, so I'd be interested to see where he's at, like for all rookies right now. But that bet's alive, baby. I'm keeping a watchful eye on his yards now.
Well, even the yards per catch thing. Let me even put this out. The troll that did this, and I know it's just one random person with an egg profile and 1 follower, but this is a thought that people follow, and they have a burner account because they're not man or woman enough to face me with their real name on Twitter. So let's just call it as it is. George Pickens had a 13.8 average on catches yesterday. Deontay was targeted 13 times and only caught 5 of them, but he had a 12-0. Claypool, 5 for 50, a perfect 10-0. The tight ends, all the wide receivers were 10 or more. I think that's where you want them. Tight ends, Gentry, 8.6. Freiermuth, 6-0. Connor Hayward, 6-0. That's where you would normally have them. Najee Harris, 5-3. Jalen Warren got 9.8. 4 catches for 39 yards. So, I mean, those are skewing you a little bit there. And Miles Boykin had a catch, 1 for 11 as well. Derek Watt had 1 for 1 yard, a little dump off that was kind of like, that was at the very beginning of the game too. It's like, ooh, we're going to outsmart you right now, right out the gate.
Kenny's throwing good balls intermediately, deep, like middle. He's doing so much more than Mitch did. And I think I'm glad you ran through that because, his average was still around 6 something. But when you look at the receiver numbers, those are all in check. They're 10 plus. Like he's looking down the field for those guys. I look no further than the first drive of the game when we were in, down in distance, 3rd and 11 or whatever. First 3rd down, he finds Pickens for like 12 yards. That was awesome, and I don't feel like Mitch was offering that. But Connor Hayward, dude, I'm glad you brought this up because I have a big brain theory, tinfoil hat. Okay, when Dan Moore false started and the Steelers were gonna go for it on 4th down. And Dan Moore false started and ruined it, and we went back and kicked the field goal. Mm-hmm. Connor Hayward was in for that play for the first time like all year, and I was like, that ball's going to Connor Hayward because in preseason, if people remember, Kenny's first 2-point conversion, he requested Connor Hayward be on the field because his chemistry with him is just so good from camp and whatnot. And then he got the 2-point conversion, boom, converted. I am positive that ball was going to Connor Hayward on that 4th down attempt because he wasn't on the field at all for the whole game. He's out there for a 4th down. The yards to go were about the same of a 2-point conversion, like 5 or 6 yards. And we didn't get to go for it. And then the very next series, Connor Hayward was sprinkled in again. And each play he was in, he was targeted. So, he's in for specific reasons, and Kenny Pickett likes him. And I am, 99% sure if they would have gone for it, you would have seen the ball going to Connor Hayward. And probably would have converted.
I'm 100,000% with you on that. He's, pretty much almost like specialty gadget type, and he's active every game day. Not only just special teams, obviously, but 3rd tight ends haven't traditionally been active for the Steelers. I've been seeing people ask for Mark Robinson. I think it's time to maybe give him a helmet too and see what he could do. But traditionally, like Buddy Johnson, Ulysses Gilbert, those guys, they just haven't gotten on the field. It hasn't translated one reason or another. It's kind of like, let's sit him for a year, redshirt him, whatever, and then maybe he goes into like a Spillane type deal. But
you're right. That does happen a lot with the middle backers. They love to make that guy inactive.
But I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm not sold on Spillane or maybe even like what he brings for special teams. Let's see what Robinson might have at this point. You've got 1 in 4, 1 in 4, right? And you're playing these other teams. If he makes that big a mistake, is it really that big a mistake at this point? I think you just gotta roll with the punches there. I mean, it's good that they got Leal out there. It's very and I know Leal. This will tell you everything you need to know too. Malik Reed is sitting on the bench a lot, and I mean he comes in just to kind of spell Highsmith, but they got Leal playing out of the position that, and I know I mentioned it earlier, but I didn't really emphasize this. This is just how bad the depth is otherwise with losing TJ Watt, that you got to have Leal, a rookie, playing in there, and he's doing quite well in that spot. I'm very pleased with him. If they could get Ogunjobi to be 100% here too. DeMonte Casey, get back from IR, get Edmonds back out of concussion protocol. I think there's a lot of things they're going to try and do on defense, and especially when you get Watt back. That's why I think a lot of this could turn around. You're going to see what was happening in Cincinnati, where they caused confusion, create splash plays, and just overall stop them, in the game. I wholeheartedly believe that that's what we should have been seeing. And I also wholeheartedly believe that the Mike Tomlin and company thought rookie might shoot us in the foot. So let's go with the safe guy at quarterback, and the defense will hold this all together. And you don't have that. That was the 2019 blueprint, Mason and Duck. And you don't have that because you don't have these guys on the field. But I do think, and I'm not throwing Devin Bush under the bus whatsoever. I still think Devin Bush is a decent option there. I think he's played better than he has last season. But I got to see what Robinson's got, maybe, just because like Tomlin said, there's got to be some changes made, some switches made. Hopefully KZ can come back too and can play and be healthy. Kelvin Austin, another option too. So Chase Claypool, if you're going to run a lazy route, if you're not going to use your size to your advantage, you're going to find yourself over on the bench where some other underperforming wide receivers have in the past in Mike Tomlin's doghouse. So
Calvin mentioned in his interview, he did a little presser last week. It was pretty cool to hear him talk for about 5 minutes. He mentioned that he already thinks that he has a good chemistry with Kenny Pickett because being in the same rookie class as him, he's spent a lot of time with him getting, driven around the city of Pittsburgh, to shown around the sites and whatnot, even though Kenny didn't need that. But he spent a lot of time with Pickett. Rookie photo shoots, rookie camps, like the whole nine, so Calvin Austin already kind of has a bit of chemistry with Kenny Pickett. It's on display with George Pickens, having that rookie connection. So I'm very much looking forward to Calvin Austin being activated. I think they'll sprinkle him in nicely.
Yeah, that's a pretty important thing to say too. Quarterbacks and timing. Like Deontay did have chemistry with Mitch Trubisky. And when you change the quarterback, go back to even Ben Roethlisberger with Tommy Maddox, and things change, and Tommy comes back in, and Tommy had been quoted many years ago that it all changed. Everyone got on the page on Ben's timing. And that's why backup quarterbacks don't always have a lot of success in the league as well. You have, I don't know, just say Landry Jones, for example, or wherever you want to exhume any of the names I said before, Byron Leftwich or Charlie Batch. They don't have that same timing and chemistry and rapport down, and they just don't get the same amount of reps and everything else in practice to get that down. So that's why this is an important period of time where I'm not going to be like extremely too upset with the outcomes of the next few games before the bye week. But let me tell you, I'm going to be extremely pissed if the Steelers go like 1 and whatever here and then 1 and whatever for the second half of the season, and they only have 2 wins. I do not care about that draft pick at the top of the class, because that really, unless you absolutely nail it, people have been wrong with the top picks in the draft, top 10 picks in the draft. Nothing is ever a sure thing, and there are guys who fall through the cracks. So none of that draft position thing means anything to me. I mean, TJ Watt, all those teams that passed on TJ Watt, probably kicking themselves. If Kenny ends up being the guy that we think he is, all these teams, Carolina Panthers right now, probably kicking themselves for not looking at Kenny Pickett. So Are
you talking about me and my love for Will Anderson right now to my face? You're just talking about me.
But dude,
I'm just having fun, dude. I'm just having fun. We've never been in a position. We have the number 1 pick right now. And clearly, I'm not going to be happy if we go 2 and 15 or whatever. But I'm just having fun with it right now, because what else can you do but laugh at it, dude? Like, we might get a shot at the best player in the draft.
There was a meme, NFL memes put out too. And sorry, we're long-winded. We're up against it. I'm going to close this out any second here, but they had photoshopped out the entire Steelers defense and just had it all empty with the Bills. It said Steelers defense today, and I thought that was pretty hilarious because, quite frankly, I didn't know. It's like, who's wearing 48 this week? It's like, that's the one you're issuing out instead of like the numbers they'll never reissue, like Jack Lambert and stuff like that. It's like 48 has been given out like, here we go. This is the extra one we got.
That's like 30 and 33 for running backs too. It's always 30 and 33 for our backup running backs all the time.
That's hilarious, especially with Connor wearing it. And yeah, everybody talks about that. This guy goes, that guy goes. You can't go making trades and significantly improving your roster at this point either. They still have a certain amount of cap dollars that are only available. And there's other teams that are still trying to win games that aren't just going to give up their marquee players. It is about the quarterback and getting after the quarterback. I think maybe they got the quarterback. Now they just got to get the guy back that does that primarily for this team. Because otherwise, they didn't even breathe on Josh Allen yesterday. It was it's complimentary to the secondary being able to do its job. And then when all those guys are out too, and you're with the backups, Allen just carved them up, man. Just carved them up. Yep.
Cohesive. It all comes together if you can put pressure on the quarterback.
Absolutely. Well, folks, that'll do it for us. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Steel City Underground podcast. We say that quite frequently, quite often. Longer winded show, maybe more than usual. We'll have some more stuff coming in the coming weeks, coming days. It's maybe a silver lining here. I just hope we have some good weather, some good October weather, and maybe put Tom Brady. Tom Brady's been getting hit a lot more too, so maybe they could finally get to him. That offensive line's banged up, but we'll be covering that in the Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh pregame later this week. And until then, my name's Joe. His name's Zach. Zach, thanks for joining us once again, as usual.
Welcome.
Yep. And until next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.